If you looked at Vampire Crawlers, the turbo wildcard from Vampire Survivors, and thought it was just another spin-off trying to hitch a ride on Vampire Survivors' success, hold on, because this game has some ideas that are much crazier than they seem at first glance. It mixes that auto-survival vibe with a more chaotic, aggressive pace full of small decisions that can completely change a run. The truth is that a lot of things here aren't very clear at the start, so if you want to play better, avoid silly mistakes and truly understand how to make the most of this chaos. Today, I'm going to show you 10 advanced tips you need to know before diving headfirst into this turbo hell. If there is one thing that will completely change the way you play Vampire Crawlers, it's understanding the increasing mana order. The game confirms this directly. You play cards in increasing order of mana cost, where each card in the sequence multiplies the effect of the previous one. It sounds simple, but when you truly internalize this, the difference in your combos is absurd. Think about it. Cost 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. This progression isn't just a suggestion, it's the backbone of the entire combat system. Each step you take up this mana ladder empowers what came before, creating a chain multiplier effect. And the best part, with Wilds, you can extend this chain to 10, 20, even 30 cards, pushing damage to completely irrational levels. The mistake practically everyone makes at the beginning is playing the strongest card first, thinking they'll do more damage right away. But then you break the sequence and waste the entire multiplier potential. Playing out of order is basically leaving damage on the table. And against the game's tougher enemies, this can be the difference between clearing a floor or losing the entire run. The right mindset here is to think of your hand as a ramp, not an arsenal. You build momentum card by card, and when the last one in the sequence drops, the result is the kind of combo that makes you say no way out loud. This is the heart of the turbo turn. The controlled chaos the game sells from the first minute, and mastering the increasing mana order is the first real step to breaking the game the right way. If you're still using wild cards just to fill holes in your deck when you don't have a better card, you're wasting one of the most powerful tools the game gives you. Wild cards aren't emergency cards. They are literally the mechanism that transforms a normal turn into something completely insane. When you start using them intentionally, you realize the game opens up an entire level that most people never get to see. The logic is as follows. A standard turn has a natural limit on how many cards you can play before exhausting the increasing mana sequence. The wild card breaks that limit. It functions as an extension, allowing you to continue the chain beyond the point where it would normally end. What would be a 4 or 5 card combo can become 10, 20, or in the best case scenario, 30 cards falling in the same turn, with each one benefiting from the multiplier of the entire sequence. The part most people don't realize is that it's not enough to have wild cards in the deck. You need to know when to play them. The idea is to use them strategically at the right point in the chain to keep the increasing mana flow moving without interruption. Playing a wild card too early can break the sequence just as much as playing a card out of order. You need to treat it as a bridge, not a beginning. And when everything clicks, when you hit turn 30 of the combo with damage multiplied upon multiplier, that is the moment that defines why the game is called Turbo Wildcard. It's not just a stylish name, it's a promise. Wildcards are the engine behind runs that seem impossible to replicate but become increasingly consistent as you learn to build your deck around them. Mana in Vampire Crawlers isn't just a passive resource you watch in the corner of the screen and accept the limit of. It is something you can and should actively manipulate during your turn. Most players treat mana as a fixed ceiling and build combos that stop exactly where it runs out. But when you understand that this ceiling can be pushed upward mid-play, the game changes completely. This is where cards like books come in. They function as temporary mana injectors. You play them at the right moment during the turn, and suddenly have extra resources to continue the sequence for a few more cards than you normally could. It's not a permanent buff, it's a window. And what you do in that window is what separates a mediocre run from a run that clears everything without a chance for a response. The real skill here is knowing when to play that mana expansion card within your chain. Too early, and you might be wasting the boost on a part of the combo where the multiplier is still low. Too late, and you might not have enough mana even to play it. The sweet spot is where you've already built enough momentum in the sequence, but still have strong cards waiting in your hand. That's when the book acts as extra fuel for an engine that's already warmed up. And you know what's the best part of all this? Overkill. Instead of stopping the combo the moment the enemy dies, you keep going, stack more damage, and ensure that every last drop of available mana was utilized. This is especially important against bosses with phases or HP recovery mechanics. Managing mana actively isn't just about efficiency, it's the difference between a narrow victory and a win that leaves no room for a counterattack. You know that player who clicks on everything randomly on the map and then complains they reached the boss weak and without good cards? Don't be that player. The dungeon map in Vampire Crawlers isn't decoration. It's information, and in this game, information is power. Before taking a single step, stop for a second, look at the floor layout, and mentally trace the route that makes the most sense. This habit alone puts you ahead of most people playing. The general rule is simple. XP and chests first, boss last. The enemies scattered across the floor are your source of experience, and every level you gain before the boss encounter is a card, an upgrade, one more chance to survive. And don't even get me started on chests. They can give you exactly that missing piece in your deck to transform a good strategy into a broken one. Reaching the boss with a complete deck full of synergies is completely different from reaching it through brute force. What many don't realize is that the game's 5 floors have a real scaling curve, and if you don't keep up with that floor-by-floor growth rate, you'll start feeling the weight halfway through. Ignoring the map on the first few floors seems harmless because the enemies are easier, but that is exactly where you build your power base. A poorly planned route on floor 2 can mean reaching floor 4 with a deck that has no way to compete with what the game throws at you. And there's a detail that takes this to another level. The order in which you face enemies matters too. Sometimes it's worth taking the long way because it passes by a rare chest or a group of enemies that drops a specific type of card. The map tells you this story before you take your first step. You just have to learn to read it. Those who master dungeon navigation don't take longer. In fact, they reach what matters stronger and faster. If you are adding every card that appears in front of you thinking that more options mean more power, I need to stop you right now. In Vampire Crawlers, a large deck is a slow deck, and a slow deck is inconsistent. The game's math favors those with a tight cycle, where you know exactly which cards will appear in your hand and when. The goal isn't to have a giant arsenal, it's to have a small, precise machine that works every round without fail. The magic number is between 12 and 15 cards. In this range, you can maintain the 0, 1, 2, 3 chain consistently because the right pieces reach your hand often enough to assemble the sequence every round. The first step to hitting this number is visiting the merchant as early as possible and removing the basic strikes the game gives you at the start. They seem harmless, but they are exactly the kind of card that shows up at the wrong time, breaks your sequence rhythm, and wastes a slot that could be occupied by something that actually adds to the combo. The second part of the equation is your hand size. Items like bracers and certain gems increase how many cards you draw per turn, and combined with a lean deck, this creates something almost unfair. When you have a 12-card deck and draw 7 or 8 cards per turn, the chance of having exactly what you need in hand is absurdly high. This is when 20 or 30 card chains stop being a stroke of luck and become something you can consistently replicate every time you sit down to play. Think of your deck as a knife, not a Swiss Army knife. The sharper and more focused it is, the more efficient each cut becomes. Every deck-building roguelite has this concept at its core, but Vampire Crawlers makes it even more literal because the chain system multiplies everything on top of everything. A chunky deck might save you in specific moments, but a lean deck with a large hand size will give you runs that feel impossible to lose. There is a combination that, once discovered, makes everything that came before feel like practice. 2 or 3 wild cards in the deck, combined with any consistent source of draw or hand size increase, is what transforms a good run into a completely broken one. It's not an exaggeration, it's math. While most people are putting together 8 or 10 card combos thinking they're doing well, those who understand this synergy are running turns that never end. The principle is simple, but the execution requires you to think of the deck as a loop, not a straight line. Wild cards extend the chain, the draw replenishes your hand mid-turn, and together they create a situation where you never run out of fuel. The real key here is what you put at the end of the chain. Whenever possible, end the sequence with a card that generates mana or draw. This doesn't end the turn, It resets the chain, and suddenly you're in another cycle within the same turn, with the multiplier already warmed up from the start. This loop is what people call an infinite within a single turn, and it's not a glitch, it's the system working exactly as designed. From the moment you have 2 to 3 wild cards fitted with enough draw, the chain no longer needs to end for lack of cards. It only ends when the enemy no longer exists. The priority when choosing cards in events and at the merchant changes completely. When you keep this in mind, any draw card becomes worth more than most attacks in the game. And here is the point that brings it all together. This strategy only truly works if the deck is small. With a lean deck of 12 to 15 cards, wild cards and draw sources appear in your hand often enough for the loop to close itself. With a bulky 30-card deck, you can have all the right pieces and still not see them together when you need them. Stacking wild cards with draw isn't just a tip. It's the central philosophy of any run you want to take to the end without breaking a sweat. This is the kind of mistake you make once, lose a run because of it, and never repeat. Putting a gem in a socket of a base card that you plan to evolve is basically wasting that slot forever. Because when the evolution happens, what matters is the space left over, not what you filled before. Vampire Crawlers inherited this logic of evolution through item combination from Vampire Survivors, and understanding how sockets work in this process is what separates those who truly plan runs from those who just react to what appears. Classic evolutions follow a direct logic. Whip plus Hollow Heart becomes Bloody Tear. Knife plus Bracer becomes Thousand Edge, and so on. But the point many ignore is that the evolved card inherits the slots that were still empty on the base card. This means that if you filled all the Whip sockets with gems before finding the Hollow Heart, you've reached the evolution with zero space for customization. But if you held 1 or 2 empty slots, the Bloody Tear is born already, with room to keep growing. Planning starts the second you decide which weapon you want to evolve in that run. From there, every gem you consider placing must pass a simple question. Does this go into a card that won't evolve, or am I compromising the potential of something that still has room to grow? Gems are powerful, but their value in an evolved card with available slots is multiplied. Spending a socket on a base card that is going to evolve is trading a good item for a great item. And in the context of a roguelite run, that difference is massive. And then there's the timing factor. It's no use holding an empty socket if you aren't actively looking for the evolution item on the map. This is where the tip about planning your dungeon route connects with this one. When you know which evolution you are seeking, the map stops being a set of random rooms and becomes a hunt with a clear objective. Reach the evolution item with the right socket available, and your weapon won't just grow, it will hit the next level, already prepared to keep evolving. One of the most important decisions you make in a Vampire Crawlers run happens before you even enter the dungeon. Which crawler you're going to use. And the right answer isn't the one that looks coolest or the one I always use. It's the one that matches the style of deck you want to build in that specific run. Each character has a kit that favors a different strategy, and playing the wrong crawler with the right strategy is like having a powerful engine in a car with the wrong gears. If your goal is the infinite loop we talked about earlier, wild cards with draw and chain resets, your character is Poe Ratcho, no question. His insane draw and mana gain were made to feed exactly this type of strategy. Imelda Belpese is another story. She is the queen of scaling with Magic Wand and Holy Wand, the kind of run where the numbers simply don't stop growing, until the point where a single turn resolves any encounter. Antonio is the most accessible, great for those learning the game, but honestly loses steam in the late game when runs start demanding more elaborate combos. And Mortaccio shines in the early game with his zero-cost bone cards, which are perfect for building momentum before you have a complete deck. The detail that elevates this tip is the moment you unlock the multiple character power-up. From then on, the dynamic changes completely, because you can start with Mortaccio to dominate the early game with bone cards, and then swap to a crawler that scales better in the mid and late game. Stop thinking of a character as a fixed choice for the run. Think of it as a tool you use in the right phase, and replace when it has fulfilled its role. The game rewards those who read the situation and adapt. A run with Imelda going for Holy Wand is completely different from a run with Poe going for an infinite loop, and both can be equally broken when executed with the right deck. Knowing each crawler's kit by heart is what gives you real flexibility to seize the opportunities the dungeon throws at you, instead of getting stuck in a single playstyle that only works when everything goes right. One of the most important turning points is understanding that the end of a chain shouldn't be the end of your turn, but the beginning of the next impulse. Many people build the entire sequence thinking only about damage, and it works for a while, but the truly broken runs are born when the last card gives you something back: mana, card draw, armor, or health. That's when the combo stops just feeling strong and starts feeling unfair. For me, this tip completely changes how I look at my hand. Instead of thinking, what is my strongest card to close in style, the right thought is, which card lets me keep existing after this closure? When you end the chain by generating resources, the turn doesn't run dry. It breathes again. And that feeling is great because you realize you're no longer just executing a combo, you're building a cycle. The coolest part is that it creates that avalanche effect that seems impossible to an outsider. You close the sequence, gain mana, draw another card or two, rebuild defense, and suddenly the enemy is still there waiting for a turn that practically never comes. In practice, this is what makes some runs look like a complete no to the enemy's game. You don't just hit hard, you suffocate the fight because you turn every chain finale into fuel to keep pressing. And against bosses, honestly, this is where the difference becomes glaring. The best runs don't win because they landed a single giant hit. They win because they chained one sequence after another without letting the boss breathe. When I see a build that's truly working, it almost always has this detail. The last card in the chain doesn't just serve to end beautifully, it serves to keep the machine running. It's this kind of chain finale that clears bosses in 1 or 2 turns and makes you feel like you finally understood where the game gets truly broken. If you are arriving at the village and spending your upgrade points randomly, picking whatever seems most interesting at the moment, you are slowing down your own progress without realizing it. There is an order that the community has already tested and validated, and following it makes a real difference in the speed at which your runs scale. First in line is greed, without hesitation. An extra 25% coins per rank might seem small at first, but it accumulates over runs in a way that funds everything that comes after. You invest in greed first to have more resources to invest in everything else. Right after comes might, which is pure and simple global damage. Regardless of the crawler, the deck, or the strategy you are using in that run, more damage is always more damage. After that comes the add extra crawler card unlock, and this one literally changes everything because it's what opens up the possibility of swapping characters during a run, as we mentioned before. Without this unlock, you are stuck with your crawler's starting kit from start to finish. With it, you have real flexibility to adapt the run as it evolves. Next are luck and XP gain, which are less spectacular on the surface, but build the foundation for more consistent runs. Luck influences the quality of the cards and items that appear, and XP gain means you reach the mid and late game faster and stronger. These are upgrades you feel more in the long run than in a single moment, but the difference between having and not having them becomes clear when you start comparing the quality of offers you receive across the floors. After covering these 5 pillars, then you focus on hand size and wildcard generation. These two are the ceiling for broken runs, what truly transforms a functional deck into a loop that doesn't stop. But they need a solid foundation to work. Without enough coins, you don't reach these builds. Without global damage, they take longer to close. Without the multiple crawler unlock, you lose flexibility. The village isn't just an upgrade screen. It's where you decide the pace of your next 10-20 runs. It's worth playing it with the same attention you give to the dungeon.